All right, joining me now here on the Matthew Filipowicz Show is musician and activist Boots Riley. Boots is, of course, the head of the Oakland-based hip-hop group The Coup. Their latest album is entitled Sorry to Bother You. You can find them at facebook.com/The Coup. You can also find Boots on Twitter at Boots Riley. Boots, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
All right, so Boots, I'd like to start out by asking you to discuss kind of some of your general thoughts on art and activism and the combining of the two.
Yeah, well, I think that art is just another form of communication. I think that whether you're talking or writing it down on paper or making a painting, you're expressing an idea. And so if you're a human in this world, you're probably going to be thinking about everything that's going on in the world. Hopefully you're not an artist who has made it their job to communicate emotions, yet you've decided that there are certain emotions you won't communicate. There are certain ideas you won't communicate. So being an artist means communicating. Being an artist would mean communicating everything that you're thinking about. And so some of these things that are happening in the world that we put into the ghettoized category of politics should come into your work, I would suspect.
Right, and you've actually famously have been, in addition to just doing obviously your music, you've also been involved heavily with activism. Specifically, recently coming to mind that you were involved with Occupy Oakland a good deal. Tell us about your experience with Occupy Oakland, and I guess where you'd like to see the Occupy movement going from here.
Well, I think that what I saw with Occupy Oakland, the Occupy movement in general, was just, people getting over their petty sectarianism. Most of the folks that were involved in the whole Occupy Wall Street movement, a lot of them were new, but a lot of them were people that have been involved in things before and are still involved in things now. The difference is that before that, everyone was working in their little cubby holes and separate from each other. And, Occupy gave people somewhat of a focus and made people work together. And through that, we were able to see what kind of visibility a movement could get through people working together. So, So I think that's what happened. And I think what I hope to see is more of the same. I think right now a lot of folks are still doing what they were doing when Occupy was all over the news, but there's a combination of things. The news is not covering it as much, and then some people are doing what they're doing, but one grouping is calling it Occupy and another grouping is calling it something else.
Right.
And that's because some people don't see the need to keep the name going. However, I see the need, and a lot of people see the need, because it's the thing that keeps these things visible. All of a sudden, to millions of people who had no idea that there was some sort of movement for social change going on, all of a sudden they saw that there is a movement going on. Now, they don't see it anymore. A lot of those same people. So, why go back to the time when, that people are working hard and no one knows about it?
Right. And Occupy Oakland actually had definitely some of the bigger demonstrations, actually like shutting down actual ports, which actually made Occupy Oakland stand apart from, different camps all around the country.
Yeah. I think that Occupy Oakland took on a stance that we were not only going to bring attention to the inequalities of the United States, or of the system, under the system, but we were going to bring attention to tactics and ways to change it. think before some of the actions that we did, the idea was that Occupy Wall Street was going to point out some of these inequalities and some of these terrible things the banks are doing and just bring a lot of attention to it. The answer to that, if that was going to be the only answer, was going to be some politicians were going to make promises, which they did, and, there would be some sort of, possibly some sort of surface types of changes that were made by begging power to change something up a little bit. And I think what we tried to do here was show people that not only is there any inequality, but the people that create the wealth are the laborers, and that because of that, we have the power of withholding our labor to affect change. And that put another tactic on the menu. We did something around that twice. We did that with the November 2nd general strike, and we did that with the December 12th West Coast port shutdown. And no matter how successful or not successful people think it was, it definitely had big reverberations in setting and making people imagine ways to do this change. So just a few weeks later, Occupy Nigeria did a general strike in Nigeria that shut the whole country down. Like, no industry was working in Nigeria for a whole week. No planes, no trains, no nothing. And hundreds of thousands of people were out in each city. It was the first social justice movement they'd had since they gained their independence.
I think it's really important for people actually to kind of even realize that even if, say, Action A that happens in one city may not, I mean, the press will always tell what the press is going to say, something negative about something. Even the fact that the press is going to do what the press is going to do. But the fact is, you never really know even what action could inspire greater action all around the entire planet, essentially.
Yeah, exactly. And I think one of the mistakes that the powers that be made in the 60s was that when they showed social protest movements, they covered it a lot, and they told people that, okay, these are terrible, what people don't remember, that even the civil rights movement and the anti-war movement, it painted in terrible lights, for the most part. I think there were some exceptions. But their mistake was that they covered it. And people saw it and were like, I want to be part of that. Now, that was the same somewhat mistake they made with the Occupy movement, that they covered it and tried to paint it in a bad light. But what they got a lot of was people identifying with it. So this is why there was a trend definitely in Occupy Oakland and maybe at Occupy Wall Street in New York as well, which was, the media is painting us in a bad light, let's not have them around. And I think that was a mistake because, you want people talking about you no matter what, because it's better for people to see stories of you in a bad light than to just see, just not even see that it still exists.